Hi everyone, I'm Alexander Zeitlin. This is the lockdown lecture series for intermediate cello, adapted from the Alias Music Foundations course for cello and also adapted for the classroom. Let's jump into lesson one. So I should mention there are some prerequisites. You should be able to play in pretty much all of your lower and maybe even middle positions pretty comfortably. I know there are different ways to, dress positions. Some people think of them kind of through the Moody system as like first position, lower second, higher second, third, and so on. And some people just think of them as first, second, third, fourth. But essentially, you should be somewhere through, maybe fifth position in the Moody system, and then like seventh position, just if you're thinking in terms of half steps. You should have some more advanced articulation in your bow, so some off the string things. And it's good to have some vibrato introduction. So if you've done some vibrato work, you'll be in good shape. If not, we will cover the fundamentals of vibrato here also. So I think I got everything, and that should be it. You should also be able to figure out where your notes are. Cello is a very cerebral instrument. Violin and viola you can get away with maybe not knowing exactly what note you're playing, just thinking positionally. I mean, cello, everything's based in half steps. You have to know, like, what note am I playing here on the D strings? Is it B flat or B natural, and the half steps and where things are. So please, if you're not strong on that, talk to your teacher and get to work on that right away. All right, so let's introduce what we'll be working on. First, I'd like to take a look and just introduce the music we'll be playing. So this is an album of pieces for young musicians written by my father. And he sort of came up in the Moscow Conservatory style of teaching and taught here in the States for many decades. And after many decades, looked at how we teach beginners and early intermediate students and thought, well, the technical material's fine, but the pieces just don't seem to be very expressive. To work with expressive music is just so much more rewarding as a young player. So he wrote a series of pieces for young musicians, each of them short, that covers a very crucial technique, but that is just wildly expressive and tells this amazing story. It's actually narrated and illustrated. As one of his younger students many years ago narrated. I will drop a link in the description. You guys can listen to the whole thing. It's sort of meant as, it got started with the first volume, which was really made for children, or like young beginners, but then continued through the intermediate stages. And these pieces are absolutely, like, not for beginners. They are quite difficult, but the charmingness of the original story continues through them. So please go and listen to them, and drop a like and share those videos. They're a blast to listen to. Kind of connects you with your inner child. I know it does. It does so with me. One note about the recordings: there is no cello recording of it at the moment. And I know that there ever will be, necessarily, because the recordings for the original are very, very special. They are played by maybe once in a lifetime violinist, prize winner of the Montreal competition, Queen Elizabeth competition. You guys can see who that is once you look it up. But to find someone who can play these pieces that expressively will be a long search. So that being said, do listen to the recordings, get it in your ear. Obviously the notes on violin are different. It's going to be tuned to fifth up plus an octave. So the notes aren't going to be the same, but the characters will be. So do take a listen to it. All right, let's jump into what we're going to be learning today. Now, when we, just kind of using this already, when we look at learning material, it's important to have a system. As beginners, your music is taught to you and you simply like copy what you learn in class. As intermediate players, it's important that you all start to learn how to not just learn the notes and the rhythm and the bowings and make sure everything's accurate, but also even start to tackle some of the quality things by yourself, because the more you can do on your own, the more interesting things that your teacher can work on with you in your private lesson. So with working with intermediate students, I tend to see, break it up into three parts, like kind of our accuracy work, our quality work, and our shaping work. And as beginners, we spend most of our time here. We just learning our notes and rhythm and bowings, and hopefully we will get to some of our quality work and just making sure everything sounds good. If we're lucky, we get to a little bit of shaping work where we kind of like go over what makes the music special and creating special moments and so on. And really we want to shift to not working on this at all with your instructor. This should all be your responsibility. Much of this work being done by you, and the instructor being able to refine it so that we can get to this, and this is where the real artistic things happen in your playing. So if you're working on the accuracy of a section, we'll be working on the notes, your rhythm and bowing, your metronome work or your rhythmic accuracy, and your memorization. These are like non-negotiable things. If I ask you, do you know the notes to a section? There is no like, well, sort of. I mean, if there are 10 notes and you don't know 3 of them, then you don't know the notes. You can't play it. Do you know your rhythm and bowings? You can't say, well, maybe. If you miss some of the bowings, you don't know the bowings, right? It's kind of like the math part of our musical journey. There's only one right answer. There are many wrong answers, but there's only one right answer. The quality portion is a little bit more like the literature portion. Intonation, sound, vibrato, movement. There are many types of good sound, we get to choose which one we want to express what we play. I mean, there are also many types of wrong sound which we don't want to use in any circumstances, so that exists too. But it's sort of a different approach to quality items, and the shaping is sort of telling the story. We'll get to that a little bit later. So let's take this approach. I'll go through each of these things in this lesson and the next lesson, so you kind of know how to approach each of these areas. Let's just dive right into it. So the first thing I'm going to say is, when you work in small sections. The first movement, the first piece in this series, is approximately this long. It's from there until like here. This is some 21 bars or so. Now if I were to tell you it takes 30 repetitions to learn this piece, and you think, whoa, man, look at all this. There's so many like tricky bowings and fingerings. I have to play it 30 times. But let's say you just force yourself through it and played it 30 times. After those 30 times, you will find it barely improved. It's just so, there's so much to take in. If you take a small section like 4 bars and you think, oh, if I played this 30 times, I would totally nail it down. In the end, it would be the exact same amount of time, maybe less, to learn it in small sections, and you will do it well. So that's my first tip and hint of the day, is to break everything up into sections, and I will mark sections for everyone. So the first step is to learn your notes. Very important. Without the notes, you cannot do anything else. When you're learning your notes, you don't need to play the bowings. You don't need to play with rhythm. Just make sure your notes are correct. Make sure every time you shift, you're shifting into the right place. Make sure every fingering is correct. So I will just play the first section with separate bows and kind of talk through some of the things you should be watching when you're doing it. So here's my very first section. So starting at F sharp with first finger, which is like higher second position for some of you it's third position. And here it is, separate bows. Second finger on A. Some of you might have like sticker positions, like markings on your fingerboard for where your fingers go. Make sure your second finger is on A on the D string because that's what it says in the music. Going on. I'm shifting down the first finger on F, making sure it's in the right place. Now, some of you are not sure how to find those notes. Again, this is an intermediate course. I'm assuming you guys know. If you don't, ask your instructor. Ask your private teacher or ask your classroom teacher. So let's say you went through it. Go through it enough times where you feel like you know this step. You don't get stuck, you don't pause, you feel confident about it. You may now go on to the next step. So go on to the next step, rhythm and bowings. And generally for your rhythm and bowings, I say get the right bowings and get the approximate rhythm. The rhythm doesn't be perfect, just observe shorter notes and longer notes. We will get it perfect in the next step with the metronome, so it should sound something like this. Make sure every bowing is correct, that you're changing at the right places, and just watch out for some longer notes. Repeat it until you feel very comfortable with it. Our next step is our metronome work. Now we're going to get our rhythm exactly correct. Now, with your metronome work, I say when you're starting a piece, get it to what I call a working tempo. It doesn't have to be absolute full tempo, but it should sound more or less what the piece should sound like, maybe a little slower. Not sure what that is on a piece you're working on, listen to the recording, turn on the metronome, find that tempo, and then just find 80% of that tempo. That's probably a good working tempo. For now, I will just actually give you working tempos. So working tempo for this piece is quarter equals, let's do 50. That would be good. Now, when you're starting your metronome work, I recommend just turn it on at that tempo and figure out if you're close. Like maybe the way you're doing your rhythm and bowing work was already close to full tempo. Yeah, that's pretty close to what I was playing before. Then you can just jump right into working tempo. If you're slower than that, you might want to maybe play it a few times again without the metronome, which is closer to full tempo, or you may want to lower the metronome speed to something lower and then work your way back up. We'll be doing that in future lessons as well. But here's what it sounds like with the metronome. It's an important step because you cannot choose your tempo. And if you want to take more time for a shift, your metronome will not wait for you. You have to make that shift in time. So lastly, we want to make sure that we know it by memory. And this, you might think like, well, this doesn't seem like a part of accuracy work, but this is a crucial step to approaching quality, because when you are buried in your music, if you are staring into your music, you are not listening to yourself, and you must be able to listen to yourself play if you're working on quality. So to work on memorization, the first step is just turn away from your music, or just don't look, and try it by memory. You might find that you've already done so many reps in the other stages that you are already have it memorized. Good for you, you got it right in the first time. If you didn't, if you start and you get stuck, it's okay. Just try again, look at the music, and do one rep with the music. And then do it again by memory, and go back and forth until you have it. For all these steps, don't be frustrated if one of them takes a long time. Don't be surprised if in one section, learning the notes was no big deal, but in the next section, 30 tries later, you still don't have them. Every section has its own difficulty and its own challenges, and everyone is geared towards them a little bit differently. Some people tend to memorize things easily, have a hard time sticking with metronome. Some people have a great sense of internal rhythm but have a hard time calculating where the notes are. Keep working on your weakness, learn it honestly, and you'll do great. Your homework for this lesson is to learn the first 4 sections. So what I just demonstrated on the first section, learn the next section, which is here. The next section, which is here. And the last section will go here until here. So that's homework for next week. Go through all of your accuracy work, get it as clean as you can. Let's see if I missed anything. I don't think so. And I'll see you for the next lesson.